What's up you guys, Mo Awesome from Awesome MTB. Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another bike review. In today's video, we're gonna be breaking down the ARI Cascade Peak. Now this might be one of the best bang for buck bikes on the market. I do read your guys' comments. Mountain biking doesn't have to be expensive, and I feel like the ARI Cascade Peak perfectly sums that up. This bike is an absolute trail ripper and it actually comes in at $19.99 MSRP. This is the comp build right here. And if you guys have been following the channel, you know we used to ride for ARI bikes. I have spent so much time on the Delano Peak, absolutely love that bike. The cool thing with the Cascade Peak is it actually shares similar traits to the Delano Peak in terms of geo. However, with the Cascade Peak, you definitely save some money. Once again, $19.99 in this comp build that's being tested. Now, what is the ARI Cascade Peak? You have 135 millimeters of rear travel, 140 millimeters of front travel. You have a 65-degree head angle up front. Once again, very similar geo numbers to the Delano Peak. Now, this right here is a size extra large test bike. I'm 6'2" for reference with an 805 saddle height, and I would actually say this fits me like a glove. Now, in the comp build up front, we have an SR Suntour XCR fork with 140 millimeters of travel. In the rear, we have an SR Suntour Radon rear shock. We have Microshift Advent X drivetrain. We have an X Fusion Manic dropper post with a Sella Italia saddle, the Boost X3. Up front, we have ARI's own alloy handlebar as well as stem. And the coolest thing about this build is we do have TRP brakes on here, which have been performing awesomely out on the trails. We have a tubeless ready WTB alloy wheel set, and we also have a Maxxis Minion DHF up front and a Maxxis Aggressor tire in the rear. Now, I've been having so much fun on the Cascade Peak, and like I said, I absolutely love the Delano Peak. This feels very similar to it, but once again, the price point is truly what is mind-blowing about this bike. In the year 2025, we do understand that mountain bikes have gotten pretty expensive, but that is the high end. I still have been saying this for a while. There has never been a better time to be a mountain biker, because I remember when I used to work in bike shops, the entry-level full suspension market was very limited. Now, fast forward to 2025, once again, $19.99, ready to rip out of the box, and I would actually say I've been very impressed by the Cascade Peak. Now, ARI Bikes is a direct-to-consumer brand. The cool thing with ordering a bike from them is you actually have 30 days to either figure out if you love the bike or return it. So in terms of peace of mind, that's super awesome there. They also have lifetime warranty on their frames. And the other cool part is you're not stuck with just their build kits. If you see something on the build kit that you don't like and you want to upgrade, you can actually get it done at the time of ordering your bike, which is a really awesome thing for a lot of riders out there. Now, there are some things that I would make a priority in terms of upgrading. If you do end up going with this bike, we'll go over those later in this video. But for now, let's actually take you guys out on the trails and show you guys just how the Cascade Peak rips out here in Laguna. All right, you guys, we have a hot day here in Southern California. Summer is officially here and we are loving it. Today, a more budget-friendly review on the Cascade Peak by ARI Bikes. And once again, you guys, entry-level mountain bikes right now, so many amazing deals. This one being a great one, especially if you want potential to upgrade the bike in the future. Cool thing with the Cascade Peak is it shares a geo with the Delano Peak, a bike that I'm very familiar with. And honestly, it feels very similar out on the trails. And crazy to think, $2,000 and ripping. The only thing I will say, the drivetrain maybe a little on the louder side. But once again, you guys, that price point, $19.99, and a very confident all-mountain geo. I really like the potential of this thing because, man, that drivetrain would be an easy thing to upgrade right now. Now, in terms of over chatter, that's where I actually noticed it does feel a little bit more, I would say, active than the Delano. And the Delano, that's another thing I like about that bike, is traction's awesome on that one. You still get the traction, but I would actually say you maybe even get a little bit more so on this platform. And I think that's gonna be a slight weight thing, this one being a little bit heavier than the Delano Peak. But as you guys can tell, it shreds. And it's still got that nimble feel from the front end. That's something that the ARI Delano Peak was known for. I really like these TRP. Can you imagine $19.99 and you get TRP brakes? And I actually really like these. I believe they're the Slate. I'll put the name on the screen. A ton of modulation. And I think a lot of riders are gonna be stoked. These brakes I would definitely keep and not upgrade. Coming through here, oh my God, what a good ripper. And then we have this bottom section, so composed from the front end. And you know, the suspension also, I mean, this is entry-level suspension, but what an amazing feel. Once again, you guys, it rips. That's 5 Oaks. Crazy to think, once again, in 2025, this is an entry-level full suspension mountain bike. We're on Rocket Trail, a little bit more single tracky. And you know, in terms of pedaling, that's the other thing I like about the Cascade Peak. It actually feels like a pretty solid pedaler. But you know, everyone's favorite part is the downhill. And that's the other awesome thing with the Cascade. It's a very similar feel to the Delano Peak. The only difference being, I would actually say this might feel a little bit more stable. Once again, I think that is coming back to weight. it does also feel very capable from a suspension perspective. I would actually say maybe even a little bit more active than the Delano on the descent, and a little bit more of a controlled feeling through all of that travel. Now, it is a little on the noisier side. A lot of that is that Advent X drivetrain. I would say it gets the job done in terms of shifting. The clutch maybe not necessarily the greatest. Are you okay?
Fine.
You sure?
Yeah, just muscle.
Oh, you sure?
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay.
Enjoy your ride.
Yeah, have a good one. And it's a hot day. I guess he was just having a little muscle spasm back there. I was helping a rider, but coming in through here, like I said, it's the Advent X. It gets the job done shifting wise, but I do think, how's it going?
Good.
That maybe in the future you might want to look at to upgrade that just from a clutch perspective. Coming into these fun corners, super nimble rear end, very maneuverable front, and once again, you guys, it is 2025. Such an awesome time to be a mountain biker. The fact that 1999, I remember when I first started riding, I think I paid about $800 for my entry-level hardtail with horrible components. The fact that the year 2000, you can get a really awesome full suspension build with TRP brakes. Oh man, great time to be a mountain biker. Now I'm gonna focus through this chunk. However, so much confidence coming from the Cascade Peak, even with these ruts down here. Just let the bike track well. Such a capable descender. Let's get back and talk about it. All right, you guys, hopefully you enjoyed that ride down here in Laguna. It's definitely getting hotter. Summer is here, but I've been absolutely loving my time on the ARI Cascade Peak. And that is one of the cool things about being a bike reviewer is you get to ride bikes all over the price spectrum. I've ridden $15,000 bikes. And once again, this is $19.99 out of the box. Now let's talk about the things that I've loved about this bike out on the trails. I would say it's a very maneuverable trail bike. The front end is very responsive. I attribute a lot of that to having a little bit of a shorter reach. And on top of that, the suspension has a very good pop in and out of corners. I will actually say I did appreciate how much more active this was over chunk over the Delano, but yeah, a very plush feeling from the Cascade Peak, and I would actually say maybe a little plusher feeling the Delano. I think I am attributing some of that to the overall weight of this bike. However, I was very impressed how good the suspension felt out on the trails. The other thing that I loved about this bike is how much confidence it had out there ripping. I always take all of the bikes on similar test tracks, and this was one that I felt very at home right away. Once again, I have spent so much time on Delano Peak, so I had something to kind of base it off of geo-wise. However, whenever you go into this test, you're like, okay, how is a $2,000 bike gonna feel, even though I just finished a test where most of the bikes were 8 to 9 grand? You could definitely tell that ARI prioritized the components that you're gonna need out on the trails. The brakes, these TRP brakes, amazing stopping power, and it was cool to have that control out on the trails. And on top of that suspension, I actually thought the SR Suntour 34 fork was very composed. It felt very stiff out there, and I would actually say you're gonna be good running this fork for a while. I wouldn't make this one of your priorities upgrade-wise. I was very impressed by the Suntour 34, especially when things got chunky. Now, what would I upgrade on this build? The first thing I probably would prioritize upgrade-wise is probably that rear shock. I do think that this bike would benefit from a shock upgrade. You can actually choose to upgrade the shocks directly from them right when you're ordering. You can go with the comp build and just have them upgrade that rear shock. That is something that I do think would unlock the potential of this bike because it is a very capable descender, and I do think that SR Suntour Radon, while it gets the job done out of the box, I can understand meeting that price point. That is probably the first upgrade I would make if I was on a budget. Now, the other priority I would probably make in terms of upgrading is probably that rear derailleur slash shifter. The Micro Shift Advent X, once again, it gets the job done. It shifts the gears. I do think you would benefit from a shock with a little bit better of a clutch. I think a lot of the noise this bike was making on the descents was coming from that drivetrain. Once again, the clutch on that Advent X, not necessarily the greatest. And once again, it goes back to that price point. I do think that is a great drivetrain for this price point. Once again, $19.99 out of the box. However, with that being said, I think if you were to get something like an XT with their clutch, or maybe even like a SRAM NX, just something with a little bit better of a clutch than that, that's probably the next upgrade that I would make if this was my personal bike. You know, those two upgrades right there are probably the only things that I would prioritize right away if I was buying this bike. I'm saying to you guys, I started from scratch. I remember my first mountain bike was a $600 or $700 Kona Mahuna hardtail, and that was my gateway into the sport. Unfortunately, as soon as I outgrew that thing, there wasn't many upgrades I could make to it. The Cascade Peak is that first full suspension mountain bike that I could actually see you holding onto and making upgrades, and those upgrades actually being worthwhile. Like I said, the potential of this bike I think is what makes it so awesome. I actually think all types of riders are gonna like this bike. If you're just getting into the sport and you're looking for a good bang for buck full suspension mountain bike, you're gonna be stoked on how this thing rips, and also the future potential of having a frame that's super solid and you could spend some money on upgrading certain components. But on top of that, more experienced riders I think will also appreciate this bike, because like I said, it feels very similar to the Delano Peak in terms of geo and suspension performance, but at the end of the day, you save so much money with that alloy frame. So once again, you guys, the biggest thing I took away from this test was how awesome it is to be a mountain biker in the year 2025. I think that this bike out of the box is gonna be an amazing option for someone that wants an amazing deal on a bike, but at the same time too, they don't want it to just be a one and done. They want to hold on to the bike for years to come. This is a worthwhile platform to upgrade, and you're gonna have an amazing time on the ARI Cascade Peak, like I said, for years to come. Thanks so much for watching. If you guys have any questions about the ARI Cascade Peak, definitely let us know in the comment section. We'll go ahead and link this build as well. And until next time, you guys, ride awesome. You.